Thank you. May I also remind people to mute themselves, please? Thank you for now. So welcome to the Postgraduate Research Recruitment Panel discussion. I will chair this discussion today. And thank you for joining us in this insightful panel discussion that has been tailored for managers involved in PhD student recruitment within the PRISM Network. I'm Dr. Ana Pereira, and I'm the Head of Strategic Research Development and Graduate Studies at the Babraham Institute. We have a panel of experts today that will discuss best practice for attracting top talent, streamlining the application process, and fostering an inclusive environment. Key topics, as you've seen from the questions sent earlier on, include broadening participation, embedding, ED&I considerations, ensuring equity in selection, and addressing recruitment challenges. Okay, so the content for today, we will start first with a 4-speaker expert panels presentations, and will be followed by a question and answer. At the end, we're going to provide a QR code that we will really welcome for you to take down and actually fill in the feedback form for today's session. So our expert panel is composed by Raj, Jennifer, Lindsey, and Eleanor. So Mann is the project manager of Yorkshire Consortium for Equity in Doctoral Education, YCEDE. She is an award-winning strategic leader in equity, diversity, and inclusion, bringing a wealth of intersectional lived experiences to her work. As the first in her family and her wider community to progress to higher education, she overcame intersectional barriers associated with being from a working class, low participation neighborhood, and an ethically minoritized Sikh background. She has a legal background focused on employment law and equity and the Equity Act, and Raj has dedicated her career to advance equity in various Yorkshire universities and currently oversees the YCEDE, a 5 Yorkshire university collaboration focused on taking race equity within the academic research sector. We also have Jennifer Thomson, who's a doctoral training and studentship manager for the Centre Doctoral Training Partnership and Doctoral Landscape Award, based at the University of Birmingham. She has been in this role over the past 3 years and previously held a number of other roles at the University of Birmingham. We have also Lindsey, who is Head of Strategy and Operations at the Scottish Graduate School of Social Sciences, the SGSSS, which are a consortium of 16 Scottish universities, of which 14 form an ESRC doctoral training partnership. Each year, they use a competitive students recruitment process to award PhD students to approximately 54 postgraduate research applicants. She has worked in higher education for over 13 years across 3 different universities in a wide range of roles. And Dr. Eleanor Groves, who is a research manager for the Doctoral College at Queen Mary University, London. And Eleanor supports institute-wide activity related to the doctoral training entities, or DTEs, including the DTE Beats, reviewing and sharing postgraduate research and DTE-related guidance and policies, collating postgraduate research data, and maintaining a network of staff involved in that DTE management. Prior roles to this, she has managed the Wellcome Trust-funded DTP, held also at Queen Mary University, London, and she is currently reviewing the postgraduate research DTE recruitment practice and staff guidance and training in this area. So it's a great panel of experts to have today. So as a reminder, questions will be raised after. But it would be good to share, and thank you to absolutely everyone that was able to answer our questions. In here, as you can see, we have a summary of those answers. So we asked you, what type of recruitment strategies do you use, and there was a range of answers there that included, there's mentoring that you follow, webinars, advertising, and outreach. And we will share these results with you when we share the slides. We also talk about what type of, when do you collect the EDA data? So you collect it throughout the application form, and you also focus on the demographics. You use the portal, you use an MS form, and you also have at institutional level. And the recruitment methods, you use e-recruitment, cover letters. Obviously, you have a dedicated portal, most of you. Anonymized options as well. Clearly, you follow a wider institutional approach. CVs and the application, formal application is the most common word. An anonymous version is actually quite reduced in the way that we recruit. Okay. So with no more, I would like to open the floor to Raj for the first presentation. Raj, please.
Give me a moment. I'll just bring up your presentation.
Oh. Okay, thank you very much. It's lovely to be here to present to you all, so I hope you find this useful. So as Anna said, I'm Raj Mann. I am the YSEED project manager, so that's Yorkshire Consortium for Equity in Doctoral Education. Just a little bit here on the slides, if you'd like to connect with me on LinkedIn and follow us, our project. So I'm going to be giving some of the research that we have kind of been conducting. So my other colleagues here today will be giving you specific examples of what they do, but we actually have an OFS Research England funded 4-year project with 5 Yorkshire partner universities who have been looking specifically at this this work. How do we ensure equitable PhD student recruitment? That's one of our work streams, but there are lots of things that we've actually been doing in terms of trying to conduct this research and with some pilot departments. So there's lots of resources that we have, which is why I've provided the links to the newsletter and the LinkedIn pages, because you'll be able to see on there some toolkits. So some of the things I'll be talking about very briefly will actually be explained in a lot more detail on our web pages via our toolkit if you are interested. So please feel free to take a look, and you'll see some of those updates on our LinkedIn pages. Okay, so we'll just move on. So just very, very briefly, because it's just kind of a quick whiz through of the project. But as I said, we are a collaboration of 5 partner universities, 12 UKRI funded doctoral training partnerships and centres. So it's not just kind of one organisation, and the centre of our project is the access to doctoral study for graduates from Black, Asian, minority ethnic backgrounds specifically. So the protected characteristic of race, and the project will be ending in March, so we've not got very much longer left, hence why we've produced this toolkit. And you can see our partners at the bottom: University of York, Leeds, Sheffield Hallam and Bradford. So a little bit about the work streams then. We've done a huge amount of work on various different work streams. So this particular topic today is our work stream 2, where we're looking at the improving fairness and transparency for selection and recruitment practices. But there are other things that we've done as part of the project, including kind of pre-application. So looking at the enrolment of in inverted commas, students are those that are interested in research, and we have had a number of other things, including internships and advocacy for people to kind of really find out and have that informed decision making about whether a PhD is right for them. So that's kind of the first work stream, and then, as I say, the second one is what we're talking about today, so I won't touch on that. And then the third one is looking at more about the on-course experience for PGRs. So we talk about kind of recruiting minoritized PGRs, but actually they have a higher dropout rate and attrition rate. So actually we want to try and ensure that they have the support whilst they get here. So we've been conducting research and trying to figure out what the best methods of support are, and that includes mentoring. And we've actually had some ring-fenced scholarships, again linking to what we're talking about today, and lots of other support of kind of what career prospects there are beyond the PhD and support there in terms of having others that have been through those same experiences with an ethnically and minoritized PGR. So we've had lots of support. We've conducted our own in-house training on for supervisors as well, on how to support PGRs. So kind of taking that cultural competency training a step further and really kind of tailoring that. And our fourth work stream is focusing on evaluating all of this and ensuring that we have the data and we can prove the impact. Sadly, it's only a 4-year project. We'd like much longer, but to be able to collect that data. But that's the length of time that we have this funding for. So specifically looking at this topic today, then you can see on the screen actually that there's been a huge piece of work on this, and we've specifically had ring-fence scholarship through Positive Action. So each of our partner institutions have had provided ring-fenced scholarships, fully paid scholarships, so 22 in total across the 4 years across our 5 institutions. And you can see that there's actually a link to a guide, and these slides will be provided so you can have a look at those later. And we've written a paper on Positive Action. So if you're thinking, how do I do this? Because we know that sometimes it can be quite tricky. Absolutely take legal advice on this, but it's trying to ensure that you essentially have the data so that you can use the Equality Act as an exception to say that we can see that there's a gap here, and we are able to provide these ring-fence scholarships for these minoritized PGRs, and as long as you can provide the data, you're allowed to use that, and it's not then classed as positive discrimination, which a lot of people get quite worried about. But actually, that's kind of the key point. And I think, as I say, absolutely take advice. We've had to ensure all of our partner universities have had separate advice from their institutions because we're a consortium. So if you're thinking, how do I actually do this? We have an underrepresentation, our institution, and we want to justify this. There's some advice and guidance in there if you're interested. So in terms of recruitment for our scholarships, then, and I know my colleagues later will be sharing some other specific examples. So, but some of the things that we have done, we've had a separate application for those ring-fence scholarships, and we've ensured that we've shared the questions in advance, so it's equitable. People have often said that they find it helpful. We're not trying to set up the PGRs to fail. We want them to perform at their best. So if we can share those questions in advance, we've had really positive feedback about that. So that's something that we've been doing as part of YSEED, so that it's really transparent, and also in terms of the scoring as well, we've provided all the information on our web pages, so that prospective PGRs could see exactly what the timeline was, how they were going to be scored, and all of the information. So there's nothing that's kind of being kept from them. It's very much, we want you to succeed, and therefore, please have a look and see and take a look on our web pages. So that's something that we've trialed and again had really positive feedback about. In terms of kind of research and recommendations, and again, I know colleagues will be kind of giving some really specific examples of these, but we've looked at kind of holistic review and rubrics in doctoral selection and admissions. And as I said earlier, there have been some pilot departments that we've worked with, and we've come up with a huge number of recommendations. It's too many to kind of list here and talk about today, but please do again take a look at our toolkit and access that, because there's some really rich information in there, and we want to ensure that people can use this, and it's helpful and supportive, because that's the point of the project. It's all for public good for anybody that's interested in this work to get access to. In terms of additional kind of possible actions, again, there's some more information there on our toolkit, but assessors training on ED&I and applicant assessment, that's really important to have training. We feel if you're going to be kind of dealing with this kind of recruitment selection processes, it's really important to try and to access some training and ensure that you have really good understanding of ED&I issues and questions, because if you don't have that lived experience and you don't have that training, you can't necessarily understand all of the issues. So it's really important to have that training there. In terms of Diversity, we've had a huge amount of feedback that actually when PGRs have been on panels that they wanted to see this this diversity. They really want to see this. They don't want to see, even if you don't have that diversity in your specific team, please try and get that support from elsewhere across your institution, because that diversity for PGRs, as far as we've received, is that is really important to them. And also, if there's any possibility of having an unconscious bias observer, that would be great. Anonymisation is something that we've had recommendations for and have tried to do wherever possible and useful. There are some challenges with that, which we can talk about later. And explicitly welcoming applicants from non-traditional trajectories, not just having a kind of a one-size-fits-all, having a more of a contextual kind of approach. That's something that we found, and having that openness from the start to change really helps with this, being committed to this work, not being performative, really being committed to having that that diverse pool really does help. As I mentioned earlier, as in addition to the kind of recruitment selection processes, we've also had an additional layer, I suppose, of using EDI to change and improve selection and recruitment practices, and that is kind of pre-application support that I talked about in our workstream 1 aspect of the project. So providing a taster of research, for example, having an advocacy scheme where you can speak to people about what a PhD involves, and specifically from a ethnically minoritized background, we provide that option for PGRs, and having some support with what interviews actually involved and how funding works. And again, there are links for all of these things if you wish to kind of find out a bit more on how best to do this, because we've spent nearly 4 years trying to conduct this research and working with departments, and some really great work there. In terms of the challenges, we find that there are really a low participation in terms of numbers for Black, Asian, minority ethnic, and it's in inverted commas because we know that sometimes people find the term challenging and they don't want to be kind of grouped into a homogenised group. And also in terms of current financial climate, we all know that HEIs are struggling, so there's been a huge issue at the moment. We've had some as I say, we're a 5-partner consortium, and some of the institutions have had to cut back and sadly kind of pull back some of the scholarships because of the challenges in funding. So that is something that is a huge challenge specifically at the moment. And in terms of data, having that consistent data, or actually lack of data, has been really quite challenging. And as I said, in some of those links, you'll see some kind of advice and support provided. Legal frameworks, I mentioned about positive action. It needs to be backed up. It's not just that you can say, oh, we think that we have underrepresentation. You need that data to be able to provide that to kind of fulfill that exception. And as I said, seek that legal advice if you're not sure. And having, we can, as I said, anonymity on applications is really important, and it's great, but actually there are some issues that come with that, where some of our PGRs have accidentally identified themselves in different ways throughout the application, so you can't ever fully have an anonymised approach. And also it's quite tricky to keep track of unnamed application forms. So yeah, there are definitely some challenges, but I think something that could be worked on going forwards. I know I've kind of run through this, but we're all quite tight for time. So thank you very much. As I say, my colleagues will be expanding and giving some detailed, specific examples of some of these. But if you're interested in collaborating or would like to find out any more, please look at our toolkit and reach out to me, because my role will actually be ending quite soon. So I'm looking for other opportunities at the moment.
Thank you very much, Raj. I'm just going to remind everyone to please type questions in the chat if you want, and I will also give the space for people to ask them verbally at the end after the all presentations. So yes, we just want to be brief when following presentations. Thank you. You can load the next one, please, Sarah. That'd be wonderful.
Right, hello everyone, and thank you for inviting me to be part of the panel today. I'm Jennifer Thomson. I'm the manager of the Centre Doctoral Training Partnership and Doctoral Landscape Award, led by the University of Birmingham. A quick overview of Centre. Centre stands for the Central England NERC Training Alliance. We are a consortium of 6 universities and 3 NERC research centres based across the English Midlands. We are funded by the Natural Environment Research Council, NERC, to offer studentships in the earth and environmental sciences. So I wanted to start by providing an overview of our studentship recruitment. So under our new Doctoral Landscape Award funding, we will be offering 26 PhD studentships each year across all our partners. Our students receive an annual stipend, home fees at UKRI rates, with fee waivers or other arrangements for international students. They receive a research training support grant and access to our own extensive training programme. Our recruitment round kicks off in generally late October, when we start advertising projects to start the coming autumn. The closing date for applications is normally early January, with interviews in February, and then we issue our offers in late February and early March. Our funding body, NERC, has a universal acceptance deadline, which is normally the 3rd Wednesday of March. So offers have to be out by that point to allow applicants to have time to consider all their offers from other NERC funded DTPs and so on before the universal acceptance date, before which we can't force them to accept an offer. So that kind of always sort of puts a hard sort of stop on our timeline, and then we have to work back from there when we're planning our timeline each year. Student recruitment activities are a key part of my role as manager of the DTP and DLA. So pretty much as soon as I've finished issuing the offers for one recruitment round, I have to start planning for the next recruitment round. So a large part of my role is kind of coordinating all of that, making sure we're getting the input from everyone who needs to contribute to the recruitment round, making sure it's all running smoothly, that we're meeting all our aims, meeting all our funding bodies' requirements, and that we're keeping it under review each year so we can adapt and make changes as needed. So I wanted to talk a little bit specifically about our approach to ED&I in PhD recruitment. So this is something that we've done a lot of work on over the past few years, particularly led by our director and our management board. So one of the first planks of this is that we offer ring fence funding for studentships for students who identify as Black, Asian and minority ethnic and who are home fee eligible. So we aim to offer up to 3 studentships per year. These students will apply directly to Centre rather than applying for a specifically advertised project, and then work with them to develop a project tailored to their interests. In order to support this, we collate a lot of data about sector-wide EDI in the earth and environmental sciences to provide the continuing legal basis for this ring fencing, and we run it past our legal services team at the University of Birmingham for a year. The next planks to our EDI approach are our approach to firstly evaluating the written applications, so considering access to opportunity, avoiding over-reliance on metrics which have known biases, making sure that supervisors are provided with equitable shortlisting guidance, and making sure we have clear scoring rubrics for the application stage. Then moving on to interviews. Again, we have sort of quite a clear format for that. So a few years ago, we introduced scene interview questions. We introduced very explicit panelist and applicant guidance so that applicants know what to expect from the interview and how to apply for, how to prepare for it. Also, again, detailed scoring rubrics which proactively consider equity factors such as neurodivergence, English as a second language. We've also, since COVID, kept all our interviews online, as we found that that was also supporting equity in the interview stage, and also was making it easier for our international applicants as well. We then evaluate these approaches through post-interview surveys of both panelists and interviewees each year. We also support this with our approach to gathering our applicant EDI data. So our applicants apply actually to our individual institutions where they're going to be based. We do gather in all the data centrally, which has been really beneficial in ensuring that we have exactly the right data that we need to report onto our funding body, but it's also enabling us to monitor every stage of the application process, from application to longlisting, shortlisting, offers, and who is accepting the offers as well. And finally, the final plank of our approach is proactivity in pipeline development and expanding our advertising network. So, for example, partnering with the Equator Project, who focus on minority ethnic retention in PGR studying geography, earth and the environmental science, advertising through other networks aimed at Black, Asian, minority ethnic students. We have funding from our funding body each year to offer summer placements for undergraduate students with the aim of encouraging them to think about going on to PGR, PhD research. And we've started in the past few years to ring fence some of this for, again, students from Black, Asian, minority backgrounds who are home fee eligible. So I just wanted to finish by looking briefly at some of the challenges and lessons learned. We have found that there is a limited pool of Black, Asian, minority ethnic home fee applicants, probably due to barriers in the pipeline at earlier stages in the educational journey. We've also found with our approach to the ring-fence studentships, where they apply to us and then we work with them to develop a project for them, and then once we've got that sorted, we issue them with an offer of a studentship. Actually, the timescales for that have been very tight, and that has sometimes made it difficult to develop really effective projects. And then when they start, that's when sometimes we discover that there's issues in the project. So we're looking at ways we can change that timeline for applications so there's a bit more time to really develop effective projects for our ring-fence studentships. In terms of our move to scene interview questions a few years ago, we did find that there was quite a bit of initial scepticism from partners about that and how well that was going to work in practice, and would they really be able to effectively evaluate applicants if they had seen the interview questions in advance. In fact, in our pilot year, when people saw how that worked in practice, our partners reported that it worked really well and that they could still evaluate the interviewees really well. And we found that actually that scepticism really kind of evaporated at that point, and we've moved forward and retained this approach since then. A few other points, we found that with our centralised approach to gathering in applicant ED&I data, it is very workload heavy. To keep it anonymous, to comply with GDPR requirements, it needs 2 members of staff to do different aspects of the data gathering, and it's quite workload heavy, and I haven't found an effective way of sort of making it easier yet, but the benefits of that are really, we do find it's really worth it, having that data that matches what our funding body's looking for and that allows us to really effectively monitor our recruitment round is really useful. A small one I threw in here, something we're increasingly grappling with, is use of AI in written application forms, how we evaluate about application forms in the light of increased use of AI and differentiate between positive use of AI to support the writing of the application and leaning on it too heavily without any kind of real original input. Something that our management board is working on over the summer to tweak questions and scoring rubrics to reflect that. And yes, we do keep our review of recruitment and selection sort of under constant review, so we can keep on adjusting it to make sure we're meeting our ED&I aims and to reflect the changing recruitment environment as well. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Jennifer. We will continue, please, with Lindsey. Just be mindful of time, please.
Absolutely. Just while Sarah's getting the slides up, I will rattle through mine as quickly as possible so that we have time for questions, but the slides will be there, and of course I welcome any contact after the provision. So just whenever you're ready, Sarah, for the slides. Thank you. Brilliant. So, as Anna kindly said earlier, I'm Lindsey Fenner. I'm Head of Strategy and Operations at the Scottish Graduate School for Social Science, which is an ESRC-funded doctoral training partnership. We award about 54 studentships per year, and in terms of student recruitment, when I'm talking about that for the purposes of today, I'm talking about the award of funding. So we have several competitive processes which ultimately relates in funding, not dissimilar to what you've just heard described from the University of Birmingham example. Our open competition is led by students who have designed their own PhD projects, and our supervisor-led competitions are led by supervisors and third-party partners who design a project and then go on to recruit the students to that project once we have awarded the funding. So as I say, we make about 54 studentship funding awards each year, and we've always within SGSSS been absolutely focused on getting as wide and diverse applicant pool as possible, but we know there are lots of different barriers to entering doctoral research. One of the things that we have tried over several years now, I'd like to describe to you today, this is just one initiative within a whole suite of initiatives similar to what my colleagues have already spoken about in the past couple of presentations. So this particular initiative started back in 2020 when we commissioned Hannah Gormley, who is a PhD intern, to do some research about widening participation and getting funding to underrepresented groups within doctoral research. Hannah's research and her key findings were ultimately put together in a report that went through all of our governance groups and, to cut a very long story short, became the foundation for our widening access strategy and action plan. A key cornerstone of that action plan, and very much based on Hannah's research, was the introduction of something called the whole person approach. And this was a new marking framework for the allocation of studentships that was aiming to look beyond academic achievement as the only indicator for PhD success. The purpose of the new framework was to attract and recruit applicants from a diverse pool, particularly those that are traditionally underrepresented in doctoral research. So to implement this, we added 2 questions to our application form, which you can see on the right-hand side of this slide. The first question is about preparedness to undertake and complete a PhD. You all know that PhD success requires a lot more than simply academic ability. It needs resourcefulness, resilience, commitment, and you need a wide range of skills, including the ability to communicate complex ideas, team working, planning, organisation. So as you can see in the slides, we ask applicants to draw on their own background through any part of their background, work, life, volunteering, etc., and to tell us about how they think they will flourish as a result of PhD funding and why they're ready to undertake this PhD. They can talk about achievements, they can talk about challenges they've overcome. We try to encourage them to map those skills onto the skills that are required to be successful within a PhD. In the second question, as you can see, we ask applicants to say how they will support diversity and inclusion in the PhD community once they receive the funding. These questions are reviewed as part of the overall application and they contribute to the total scoring and ranking of the applicants and ultimately the decisions made regarding the award of studentships. Very quickly then, the implementation was largely focused on training our reviewers, our supervisors, our applicants by using vignettes and exemplar forms. And most importantly, we used Hannah's report to sell the rationale for looking beyond academic achievement as the only indicator of success. So we used that evidence base to convince people this was a good idea to go forward with. Because it was introduced back in 2022, were our first students to come in. We've now had 4 years of ED&I data that we've accrued, and we've got some initial findings that we're starting to look at and draw conclusions from. Between 2022 and now, we'd had some positive feedback and good anecdotal responses, but it's nice now to have the multi-year data to look at what we're doing. Some early conclusions were about have already led to process changes. They were about the declarations, the volume of declarations we received. So for example, we believed that the declarations regarding disability were unexpectedly low. So we changed the information that we made available because we weren't clear on whether that was because people with disabilities didn't wish to declare that they had a disability or whether it was because they didn't feel that that people with disabilities didn't feel that PhD research was for them or would be accessible. So we changed information to try and encourage better disclosure and of course wider applications. We've also started to compare the data we have with wider higher education populations and wider societal data. For example, we believe that looking at our data, the spread of our home applicants from different ethnic backgrounds is reasonably representative of wider societal populations within the UK, which is very interesting. And similarly, looking at 3 years of data about our declared sexual orientation within the SGSS population, it looks comparable to the most recent UK census. So that's beginning to give us a view comparing our population with wider societal data. We also want to start reviewing a full PhD cycle. True widening participation is not just about getting people in the door. People who face barriers to PhD research are not only facing barriers to get into their PhD, but also to complete. So our first cohort, who started in October 2022, will start completing in the coming year. So we want to make sure that we're looking at that data to indicate whether initiatives to support them during the PhD were also successful to lead to conclusion. So lots of things that we could talk about, but I think the main conclusion is this is always worth trying to do. Despite a 4-year history, it's relatively early days. You need multi-year data to give you true insight, but there's encouraging early signs. And within SGSS, we are going to continue to focus on looking beyond purely academic results as a measure and indicator of future PhD success. That was very quick, but hopefully helpful. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Lindsey. And as she said, the slides will be shared and contacts will be shared as well. So this is really insightful. Sadly, we only have 1 hour. Eleanor, the floor is yours.
Thank you. I'll also do my best to rattle through my slides as quickly as I can. So I'll just wait for them to pop up. Just while the slides come up, as Anna introduced me, my name is Ellie Groves. I'm the research manager. Thank you so much, Sarah, for the Doctoral College. Thank you for the invitation to come and be part of this interesting session today. I'm just going to give you a bit more of a high-level, institute-level sort of picture of PGR recruitment at Queen Mary. So I'll just go straight onto my first slide. So to give you a sense of the context at Queen Mary University of London, we have a healthy population of around 2,000 plus current PGR students. We're a multi-faculty, multi-campus organisation, which has its challenges. We have a lead or a partner in over 20, I think there's 22 now, what we call doctoral training So this is a catch-all term for DTP, CDTs, etc. My role is primarily to support those doctoral training entities and activity around that. In terms of our PGR funding profile, we have a relatively high portion of UKRI, including sort of institutional match funding programs, very closely followed by a large proportion of sort of QM internal funding. I think compared to the Russell Group, QM seemed to invest quite heavily on internal funded studentships, which then has its cons in terms of a knock-on impact in the cost recovery aspect of PGR funding. We also, of course, have sort of charity funded PhD programs, industry funding, and a small proportion of sort of self-funded PhD students. In terms of our wider practice across the Institute, we have institute-wide guidance. I'm working on a project to look at this again. It's sort of timely to do so. So this discussion is really, really helpful for that. We also have specific admissions policies, of course, that must be followed. But outside of those, well, within those parameters, rather, all our doctoral training entities really operate fairly autonomously to recruit in different models and different ways and use different approaches, and we do our best. Part of my role is to share best practice across the institute and obviously understand best practice across the sector, but there is certainly variations in the way those different DTEs operate their recruitment processes. And in terms of our local context, for our wider student body, we actually are one of, I think now, the most diverse student population in the Russell Group. We're heavily embedded in our local community. It's a really key part of our strategy, which you can see here on the right-hand side. We have a high proportion of local students at Queen Mary University. And just to put that in context, Tower Hamlets, in which 3 of our campuses are located, is one of the most deprived boroughs in the UK. So as I said, inclusivity is really at the heart of Queen Mary's strategy, and this high-level strategy is overarching what you can see here. I guess I've just popped up some of the considerations that we are constantly grappling with and trying to address in the Doctoral College with reference to PGR in particular. So things that will, I'm sure, chime with lots of you. How do we actually identify our underrepresented groups? So what are the data we hold or the data we collect? How do we identify the barriers? And so others have talked about sort of the challenges, not just in recruitment, but retention for PhD studies. What are the initiatives, or what are the evidence-based initiatives that we can use or trial to remove those barriers? And how can we tell if those initiatives, so it's the evaluation aspect as well. So some of the ways that we've started to try and address these questions is, for example, enhancing our data collection. So many of you will be familiar with the sort of DAISY level data recommendations that I think were published by Wellcome Trust some time ago now. So we're working on our improved level of data collection, which has its own challenges. We also run a summer program similar to some of those that have been mentioned. So our program is called STRIDE. So it's a summer internship research project program for underrepresented groups. That's been really successful in terms of the progression of those students onto PhD research. We also run ring-fence scholarships and studentships, and they're often managed at a faculty level for funding reasons. And another example, I suppose, of an ED&I initiative that we've or activity rather, that we've recently launched is I've created a Power BI dashboard based on wider PGR recruitment data and EDI characteristics. Obviously, that's just for internal use, but it's proving to be useful already for schools and institutes to actually mine their own data in terms of how they're doing recruitment for particular characteristics groups. So sorry, I am trying to go as fast as I can so we can get some questions, doing my best. So challenges, again, lots of these you've heard already. So our systems is a really big challenge at Queen Mary, and I'm sure this will ring true for lots of you. SITS is really not, in our view, fit for purpose for collecting data on PGRs, and we have challenges around sort of changing the way we hold and input the data centrally. Again, I won't go into it anymore. So the challenge of how do we collect and store and access and ensure accuracy for our data? It's that single source of truth problem. Often DTPs might hold certain data, JES needs to hold certain data, our SITS system needs to hold data, and how do they all interact and ensure accuracy? That's one thing we're grappling with. Devolved nature of QM, so because of the way QMUL has evolved over its history, we actually operate a quite devolved financial model, and so lots of decisions are taken sort of at faculty level, and that means, you know, in some areas practice has diverged. Again, that's can be challenging. I think Jennifer mentioned this as well, AI and recruitment is something I'm going to incorporate in as part of the recruitment review, policy review. How do you ensure that it doesn't negatively impact your recruitment processes? Yeah, again, a key challenge, I think, for lots of populations, but particularly for QMUL, given our really high level of diversity in our undergraduate population, this isn't necessarily at all reflected yet in our postgraduate population. So the challenges in trying to get further down that road. And I think lots of the questions that have come in are around remaining competitive. So how do we really attract, in the current climate, high quality home students in particular, and in particular those from Black, Asian and minority ethnic groups? I will leave it there. Very happy to be contacted after the session. So yeah, so sorry, we've overrun somewhat.
Thank you so much, Eleanor. No problem at all. I know there's so much to share and there's already quite an interest as well. So in the remaining of the session, we will try to answer some questions. So I would like to start by saying it's been really interactive in the chat. So thank you very much for those that have posed questions. And we have a range of answers as well from a panel and other members that are attending, which is really good. So what I would recommend as well is in the chat. You can have access. I think it will be great to capture these questions and some of the answers so we can send them again rather than repeat them all live. So I think it would be wonderful to bring to the panel questions that have not been asked and have not been answered, so we can cover that as well, especially from those that have been submitted to us before. Some of them have been answered, I'm sure, by the presentations given. So remember, you are welcome to raise a question verbally now. Just raise your hand and I'll give you the opportunity to ask a question, or type new questions in the chat. Okay. While we wait, I thought it would be useful. There is a question that we received several times in the survey made when we started, is explicitly what has been mentioned by Ellie at the end. So one of the challenges for UKRI funded centres for doctoral training, you know, whichever different types that there are, is navigating the 70-30 split between home and overseas places, while applications tend to usually tend to be vetted. I think that's a common trend, at least across the panel and some of you. So has anyone landed on any especially effective channel for reaching potentially home applicants, or how do we increase our home applicants that apply for PhD students? So I will open the floor to the panel. Please raise your hand so then I can see who wants to answer that first between the panel.
I
Yes,
can, but I was
Ellie.
just giving Jennifer a chance to come in, because I know she's, as a CDT manager of UKRI funded, she's probably got a very excellent, so I can answer at a very high level from Queen Mary point of view. It is a huge challenge, and it's a challenge across all of our UKRI funded DTPs, not least because every year it causes a tension where for particularly the bigger DTPs that have partners, there's also the tension of ensuring the partners have the right numbers of or appropriate numbers of home versus international students. One of our DTPs trialled an approach this year, because it has been identified as a challenge, whereby they ran specific support sessions for both students and supervisors to try and really push supervisors in particular to identify really promising home students. It didn't actually, unfortunately, have the impact that we were hoping, and it didn't seem to impact the numbers, unfortunately. Again, it's just one initiative that's run 1 year, so you could argue it's a cumulative perhaps impact, but yeah, I don't really have any significant answers other than we're just trialing things as we go. I'll let others answer if they have anything to add.
All I can add here is that we unfortunately don't have any answers to this either. It's something that we really struggle with, and I think it's common to pretty much all DTPs and CDTs that it is a real challenge at the moment. I know from talking to managers of some other NERC DTPs that they've suggested a couple of websites for advertising studentships and projects on, which tend to reach more home students. And I did mean to look those up and refresh my memory before this meeting, but unfortunately didn't manage to get a chance to. But I think there are some websites which may reach more home students rather than international ones.
Thank you. Lindsey.
Thank you. Yes, it's such a challenging question. Just to maybe pose another question rather than answer that first one, I think the flip side of the UKRI cap at 30% and also the atmosphere that we have within the UK at the moment is I actually think there's significant ED&I issues for international applicants themselves, because with things like the NHS surcharge and visa costs and the increasingly difficult opportunities to remain within the UK after your PhD, I actually think that we've got more and more ED&I issues for those applicants, and ultimately we may be finding ourselves only able to recruit essentially very middle class, very wealthy applicants, because those true opportunities for people from particularly the global south will not exist within the UK. So there's so many sides to this, and unfortunately ED&I issues in every angle.
That's a good point. Thank you very much, Lindsey. I think we have Swapna that would like to probably ask a question. If it's
Hello,
possible
everyone.
to share your video, that would be great. But it's okay.
Sorry, I'm actually not so presentable. I've just come back from gym. Sorry.
Oh, that's okay. No problem. Please go ahead.
Yeah, sorry. But just a quick question. I know that this has been I'm sorry, my name is Swapna Kandwali, and I'm a CDT manager for the University of Birmingham, and we are funded by EPSRC. And this is a question for Jennifer, and I know that we've worked in the past together as well, Jennifer. But that was very interesting in terms of the fact that you mentioned about one particular thing which you do in your recruitment, as you've ring-fenced some of the money towards the undergrads workshops, so that you would show them and to encourage them to apply for PhDs once they finish their undergraduate degrees. I mean, how measurable is that impact in terms of it? I mean, have you actually had a good number of students who actually are undergrads and have applied for the PhDs?
Yeah, in a way, I find it's difficult to measure. So we have funding from NERC to offer these summer placements to undergraduates, with the idea it will encourage people to go on to PhDs. And we also ring fence a number of them. We always have a lot of interest in these opportunities, and really more interest than we have funding available. But then looking at how people progress from there, and whether they do go on to PhDs, we have found more difficult. So if they go on to a PhD with us, then yes, we can track that, and certainly a number of students have gone on to do that. But if they go on to do a PhD with another NERC DTP or even elsewhere, there isn't at the moment a way to track that, and certainly we could work with the other NERC DTPs that we have close links with to look at that. But at the moment, there isn't a very kind of easy way to look, unfortunately, at where these people are going. And often they may be doing the studentship, the placements after their first year. So they've got a number of years still to go before they're actually going to think about where they're going next. So yeah, trying to sort of track that.
Is it actually open for all undergraduate years or just the final year of undergrads?
It's open to all undergraduate years. They have to, this is specific to our funding body, so they have to start their placement before they're graduated. So they could have finished their course, but as long as they haven't graduated before the actual start date of the placement, then they're eligible.
Oh, okay, perfect. Oh, thank you, Jennifer. Yeah.
Great. Thank you very much. Looking at the time, I will just pose one last question. One of the questions received as well was, how do you target non-traditional applicants? Those that don't look to find a PhD, LinkedIn, or those who are not undergraduate students in your partner organizations. Is there any approach that the panel does to target non-traditional applicants beyond this? I'm happy to answer.
I can.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. I was going to jump. I was trying to find the mic button. Just very
Good.
quickly. So we found. So I mentioned some of the work that YSEED have done, kind of pre-application, in terms of advocacy and internship. But as you say, they're kind of more focused on mostly current undergraduates. But actually, we have reached out via community and higher education institutions and people having that break, and kind of having to come back and refresh, but actually kind of just reaching out through community organisations has been one of the things that we've done. And so, for example, at York, the internships that we provided, they didn't have to be an undergraduate. At York, we've just opened it up to kind of all institutions too. So I think just trying to, going back to the kind of that contextual admissions approach, almost, and that holistic approach, I think it's really important to try and reach out, because we know, especially with the underrepresentation, wherever possible, aside from all the standard things, I think just trying to reach out to community groups has been, we've had lots of positive feedback on that.
Thank you so much, Raj. Okay, so due to time, I think we're going to close. There's several questions that you have sent, so thank you so much. We'll share everything we can. Just to add to that question, we use Into Science, which is actually promotes social mobility through STEM field. So I'll just share the link as well. So that's how we also advertised or our opportunities and our internship program in cases of benefit. We also, as I said at the start, will be recording and sharing the slides. And as you can see on your screen now, we would welcome your feedback on this session as well. So please take the QR code. The link also has been kindly provided by Sarah there. So you can just click and fill in the form. Take a few minutes, because if you think this is really worth it, it's great to connect through the PRISM network. Clearly, there's more things that could be discussed and shared, but hopefully this is a start of something more. There is a membership. Someone is asking. I don't think it's within the Into Science. I don't recall the details, but I'm happy to share with you later on. But yes, you can contact them, and it's a membership that we pay. I don't recall the value, but it's quite good. And we actually promote internships for our minorities students that we're trying to bring into a summer internship. And also we advertise there all our PhD programs that we have, in case it's helpful. Wonderful. Thank you so much once more for all of your thing. If you have any following questions, please keep them, putting them. We might not be able to answer now live, but we can capture them and summarize that. So I would like to say a big thank you for Sarah for organizing this event, which has been wonderful to hold, and all the speakers sharing all their expertise, which is also great to have. Thank you for sharing. And I wish everyone a wonderful end of your week and a good weekend, and keep cool if you can, if you are in the heat.
Thank you, everyone. Goodbye.
Thank you. Thanks, Anna.
Thank you, Anna. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you for coming.